Good afternoon. So I'm with Impact Organizations of Nova Scotia, or IONS, and we support and amplify the voices of Nova Scotia's nonprofit and charitable organizations who are working to create positive impact across our province. And it's time that we recognize the essential role and contributions of those people working to address the complex social and environmental challenges that we're all facing. And these people are struggling. So over the past year, we've started a series of conversations around the topic of sector transformation, including rethinking funding models. Through these conversations, we've heard consistently and unsurprisingly that the current funding system is broken. A few weeks ago, I was at a community session about an hour and a half from here, and the executive director of the local Family Resource Center shared a story that sums up how it's broken. She spoke about a time when she was working with some donors who wanted to contribute to helping to create a Christmas dinner for families in need in her community. So she tried working with them to develop a menu that would be based on their preferences, which she knew after working with them over a long period of time. But the donors wanted to create that menu. And they also wanted to make decisions about where the meal would be held, the time of day, how it was served. And they wanted to make sure that people really understood that they were going to be thankful for that meal and they were going to enjoy the food. And of course, they would get a tax receipt on their way out. So traditional philanthropy in many ways is rooted in savior complexes and altruism. Too often we give in order to benefit ourselves, whether that be emotionally or financially, without enough thought to the dignity of those being directly affected or to those who are working to improve the lives of others. We need to stop the force feeding and recognize people's decisions about what works for them. In our research, we consistently hear that funding and burnout are the top two issues plaguing this sector. These, of course, are not new issues, but after the past few years, they've reached a critical tipping point. We've set up a way of working in a system that prioritizes accountability and administration over impact. Leaders today are wearing at least 10 hats because there's never enough resources to hire people to do the HR management, the financial management, the marketing, communications, reporting, and so on. Staff and volunteers are spending way too much time applying for grants, reporting on progress, and justifying their priorities. And much like the Christmas dinner story, often these priorities are set by funders. There's a tendency to focus on the new, the shiny innovations and silver bullets. This leads to mission drift and patterns of starting and then stopping programs, which ultimately erodes trust in community. And the focus on short-term priorities and outputs means there's perpetually a lack of resources to support operations, organizational development, and long-term planning. These short-term time horizons also lead to staff turnover. They say that the sector is a training ground for government. And once people have the skills that they need, they move on to more stable opportunities and higher wages. The list goes on, and at the end of the day, organizations are left with a patchwork of funding sources, programs, and services that take a ton of energy to knit together and erode potential impact. We saw time and again through the pandemic that community organizations can mobilize services and distribute supports far faster than government or businesses can. And this is because they're connected, they're trusted, and they intimately understand local needs. It's time to flip the power dynamics in the sector. This work goes far beyond outdated views of housewives who are selling baked goods at community halls or knitting socks for the homeless. But it is a predominantly female sector. And it's time that we acknowledge that the core reason that it's undervalued chronically is because of that. And it's time to switch that imbalance. Funding transformation requires that those of us who are white settlers on this land, who are holding privileges, power, and wealth gained from colonial systems, we need to recognize that we do not always know best. So doing things differently necessitates a shift to trust and outcome-based models, to multi-year unrestricted funding, simplified and streamlined paperwork, transparency, two-way feedback, and supports that go beyond money. It does not mean that we abandon accountability, but that funders and community leaders work together as respected partners. Just think for a minute about how we treat private sector consultants and advisors. They're seen as experts, they're paid well, they're trusted to deliver what they say they can without having to justify their spending and decisions around their actions. They are not held to a 15% admin budget. Now turn your mind to the reality of community sector grants where applications and reporting are under constant scrutiny and are intense. What are we so afraid of? We can do better. We can work together toward shared goals and toward a better future. Let's look to groups like the Right Relations Collaborative in BC. We're a group of Indigenous women, the Aunties Council, controls how money flows to support work in their community and even who can fund work in their community. So I'm going to close with their words. Through honest collaboration guided by Indigenous leaders, we will break down silos and barriers, increase the flow of funding into community-rooted work, and nurture healthy relationships that support the restored and regenerative future we all envision. We have much to learn from leaders like these. Thank you.